And I showed it to my parents, and I was so scared to show it to them because everything I made, I hid, not because they were, harsh or unsupportive.
For nearly 30 years, Tim McGraw and Faith Hill have been treated like country music royalty, not just for the hits, but for the marriage itself. Two of the biggest names in the genre, married since 1996, still touring together, still showing up for each other at award shows 3 decades in. It's the kind of longevity that almost never survives fame, let alone survives it twice over. And whenever a celebrity relationship lasts that long in an industry built on breakups, people stop being impressed and start being suspicious. So when their youngest daughter, Audrey McGraw, started stepping into the spotlight on her own terms, fans didn't just want to hear her sing. They wanted to know what she'd say about her parents. Because if the McGraw-Hill fairy tale had a crack in it anywhere, their own daughter would be the one who'd seen it up close. Here's the thing about Audrey, though. She isn't a kid coasting on her parents' name. She's 24 years old. She's been building her own career as a singer and model. She opened a tour for Brandi Carlile in Europe. And she's slowly carving out a lane that has nothing to do with being Tim and Faith's daughter. That matters, because artists trying to separate themselves from famous parents usually do it, at least a little, by putting distance between themselves and the family brand. A guarded quote here, a careful non-answer there. It's basically the default playbook for celebrity kids who want to be taken seriously as their own person. So when Audrey opened her mouth to talk about her mom and dad, a lot of people were bracing for at least a hint of that distance. That is not remotely what happened. Long before Audrey was opening arena shows or walking runways, she was a newborn fighting to survive. She arrived on December 6, 2001, 7.5 weeks premature, delivered by emergency C-section, weighing just 3 pounds, 11 ounces. Tim McGraw and Faith Hill were, at that point, two of the most successful artists in country music, and none of it meant anything inside a NICU at Nashville's Baptist Hospital. For almost 3 weeks, the two of them showed up every single day, unable to even hold their daughter without wearing gloves, just waiting for word that she was strong enough to come home. She finally was discharged the day before Christmas Eve. Tim has talked about it publicly more than once, describing how he and Faith did a lot of praying and stayed at the hospital all day every day during that stretch. Faith has said something similar, and the family has actually built a tradition around it. They decorate a live Christmas tree every December 6th, Audrey's birthday, and have done it every year since. It's worth sitting with that for a second, because it's one of the only genuinely unscripted, unglamorous chapters in this family's history that's ever become public. Most of what gets written about Tim McGraw and Faith Hill is chart positions, stadium tours, joint performances, red carpet photos. This is different. This is two people who, for a few weeks, had absolutely no control over the thing they cared about most. Families that go through that kind of scare together don't typically come out the other side performing closeness for cameras. They come out of it a little more aware of how fragile everything actually is, and often a little more inclined to say the quiet, sincere things out loud instead of saving them for private moments. That context is easy to skip over, but it's probably the single most useful thing to understand before getting into what Audrey has actually said about her parents as an adult. Fast forward to March 2026. Tim McGraw had just been announced as one of the newest inductees into the Country Music Hall of Fame. Hours later, Audrey was on stage at Las Vegas's Red Rock Casino, with a live crowd in front of her and every opportunity to keep her comments brief and generic. Instead, she told the audience plainly that she was so proud of her dad, and made a point of including her mom in that same breath, talking about how proud she was of both of her parents and how much she loved them. No hedging. No, we've had our ups and downs, but we've worked through it. Just straightforward pride, said out loud, in public, where anyone with a phone could clip it. And when a public figure's family relationship is genuinely strained, that usually shows up in how carefully they talk about it. Measured language, therapy speak, a lot of qualifiers. Audrey's comments didn't have any of that texture. They read like someone who wasn't managing anything, because there was nothing to manage. That would have been a nice, tidy story on its own. Except 4 months later, Audrey did something that made the March comments look like a preview. On July 24, 2026, Tim McGraw was headlining a show at Jones Beach Theater in Wantagh, New York, on his pawn shop guitar tour. Midway through the night, without any advance announcement, he brought his youngest daughter out on stage. Now, family cameos at country concerts aren't unusual. Usually it plays out the same way: a quick hello, maybe a short duet, a wave to the crowd, and then the headliner gets back to the set list. That's not what happened here. Audrey didn't come out to plug her own music, even though she's actively building a solo career, and this was about as big a stage as she could ask for. Instead, she performed Stronger, Faith Hill's 2002 power ballad off the Cry album, a vocally demanding song that Audrey reportedly nailed, according to multiple outlets that covered the show, drawing comparisons to her mother's own voice from fans and fellow artists who watched the clip afterward. Think about what that choice actually says. She had a packed crowd, complete creative freedom, and a real platform to introduce herself as an artist separate from her family name, and she used it to sing her mother's song at her father's concert. In one move, she put both of her parents at the center of the same moment, on a stage that technically belonged to only one of them. Afterward, Audrey posted about the night, twice. In the first post, she wrote that she didn't have the words to express what an honor it was to sing her mom's song at her dad's show, and added that being their daughter felt like an infinite gift, saying she loved them and was proud of and inspired by both of them. In a separate post, she shared a clip from the show thanking her dad directly for having her out there and telling him how proud she was of him. 2 posts, 2 different angles, both landing on the same note: gratitude, pride, and not much sign of anyone managing an image. If there were real tension underneath the surface, this is a strange way to handle it. Most people navigating a genuinely complicated family relationship in public keep it brief, vague, and infrequent. Audrey did the opposite. She said more, not less, and said it from multiple angles in the same week. Here's where this gets interesting, because the honest answer isn't as dramatic as a lot of headlines want it to be. Based on everything that's actually been reported and said on the record, Audrey's own words, on 2 separate occasions, months apart, unprompted both times. There's no real evidence of hidden family drama here. What there is instead is a fairly consistent, fairly public pattern. A daughter who survived a rough start in life with both her parents right there for it, who as an adult keeps choosing to say loudly and repeatedly that she's proud of them. That's worth pointing out because it cuts against the usual assumption people make about famous families. The conventional wisdom is that the bigger the spotlight, the higher the personal cost, that kids of major stars grow up resentful, or at least keep some emotional distance once they're old enough to have their own voice. That pattern shows up often enough in celebrity culture that it's become the expected script. Audrey McGraw just hasn't followed it. She's not distancing herself from her parents' legacy to build her own name. She stepped directly into a moment that belonged to both of them, on her father's stage, singing her mother's song, and then posted about how much it meant to her instead of staying quiet or keeping things vague. None of this means the McGraw-Hill family is without its private struggles. Every family has those, and it would be naive to assume otherwise just because of a couple of concert clips and Instagram captions. But as far as what's actually been said and documented, the story here isn't a hidden crack in a manufactured image. It's closer to the opposite, a rare case where the public version of a celebrity family and the version behind closed doors seem to line up. And maybe that's the part worth sitting with. We've all gotten used to being skeptical of celebrity families that look too perfect, because we've seen that instinct pay off before. Plenty of picture-perfect couples have turned out to be anything but not every long marriage in the public eye is hiding something. Sometimes 2 people who went through something genuinely frightening together early on, who spent decades side by side under a level of scrutiny most people never have to deal with, just come out the other side closer instead of further apart. Sometimes what you see really is what you get. What do you think? Does this change how you see this family, or are you still skeptical? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, the kind that stick to what's actually been said and documented instead of chasing rumors, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one.